Penguin Random House Audio presents Godstruck, 7 Women's Unexpected Journeys to Religious Conversion. This is the author, Kelsey Osgood. For my subjects, and for Matt, Isaiah, Solomon, and Caleb. Some nights, going in to kiss her girls in their sleep, she will stop and look and feel before these many beasts of Githas something akin to what she felt as a child when the nuns sang their most beautiful, most awesome psalms, a slow internal pouring of ecstasy. Awe. If only she had the time to examine this feeling, Wolfhild thinks ruefully. But she does not have time. She never has time. Her children call, the business of the abbey calls, the hungers and fatigues of her body call. She will come closer to God when she is old, in a garden among the flowers and the birds, she tells herself. Yes, someday she will sit in silence until she knows God, she thinks, lying down in her bed to sleep. Just not now. Lauren Groff, Matrix. Rabbi Baruch's grandson Yehiel was once playing hide-and-seek with another boy. He hid himself well and waited for his playmate to find him. When he had waited for a long time, he came out of his hiding place, but the other was nowhere to be seen. Now Yehiel realized that he had not looked for him from the very beginning. This made him cry, and crying, he ran to his grandfather and complained of his faithless friend. Then tears brimmed in Rabbi Baruch's eyes, and he said, God says the same thing. I hide, but no one wants to seek me. Martin Buber, Tales of the Hasidim. Introduction. In May 2015, I stood in the basement of a nondescript building on the side of a city highway, the warm water of a mikveh, a Jewish ritual bath, lightly lapping my shoulders, my eyes swollen from spending most of the morning in tears. I wasn't sad, just overwhelmed. At the threshold of the door, 3 rabbis, their gazes averted to avoid seeing me unclothed, asked me via a series of yes or no questions to confirm my loyalty to the Jewish people. After answering them, I dunked under the water. The rabbis turned around then, although of course I couldn't see them, to ensure every last strand of hair was submerged, and then emerged, finally, a Jew. The mikveh is the final step in the process of converting to Judaism. And for me, it came at the end of 3 years of study and lifestyle changes. No more Christmas trees, no driving on Saturdays, and a lifetime of seeking. I was a young person whose inner life had been, and still is in so many ways, dominated by existential restlessness, and Judaism was a way to both validate that restlessness and channel it. I also happened to believe it was true. It was certainly not a transformation anyone who had known me for long saw coming. I was raised in a broadly non-religious milieu, in a nuclear family that was, and is, best described as secularized American Christian. Appreciates giving gifts on holidays, but is either apathetic toward or opposed to God, depending on the individual. One of my favorite extended family members was my maternal grandfather, a self-described agnostic and misanthrope who enjoyed skewering our few religious family members at gatherings. For much of my early life, I went far beyond my peers in my distaste for religion, declaring God definitively not real in the 3rd grade. I thought it painfully obvious that to be religious meant to be unintelligent, and intelligent was the only thing I really wanted to be. Later, I went to college in New York City, where I spent my time intoxicated by postmodern thought and, well, intoxicants, interning at high-profile fashion magazines and nursing fantasies of a bohemian future. But years into a typical wild and woolly urban 20s experience, I found myself drawn to a Judaism that was mystical, conservative, and rigorous, and so, in direct contrast to most of my peers, and to the statistical trends that show Americans, and in particular young Americans, rapidly secularizing, I pursued it. In one sense, my decision to convert can be viewed as a deeply conventional one. I signed on to a system that broadly supports traditional values about family, gender, community, and a host of other things. But in another way, for those same exact reasons, it might also be considered a wildly countercultural move. We're at a curious tipping point. What was once the epitome of conformity, dressing modestly, advocating for traditional family structures, and yes, believing in God, now suddenly, in certain contexts, looks transgressive. Who in our glorious age of progress would choose to look backward for truth, rather than take advantage of the freedoms we now consider our birthright? Almost every study on the matter in recent years has shown that the percentage of Americans who describe themselves as not religious is growing. The Pew Research Center, a think tank that often collects data about religious affiliation and spiritual trends, found that between 2007 and 2021, the percentage of Americans who identified as having no religion at all rose from 16% to 29%, while those who identified as Christian dropped from 78% to 63%. The secularizing shifts evident in American society so far in the 21st century, the researchers wrote, show no signs of slowing. There's some reason to believe this movement is particularly pronounced among young women, with some data showing that Gen Z women are far more likely to identify as not religious, 34%, than Gen X or millennials, 23%. Coverage of the rise of the nuns, spelled Nones, as it's often framed, in mainstream media tends to be conveyed in a tone simultaneously self-satisfied and resigned. Well, of course, we live in a world with science and medicine and technology and progressive values. Why would we keep these ancient bugaboos around? Many people I've spoken to who have backgrounds similar to my own, which is to say secular liberal ones, interpret the collective loss of religion as a validation of their own worldviews, though they often inherited those with a passivity similar to the kind that's often decried in religious people. Yet despite the broad consensus that Nietzsche might have been right to declare God dead, there remains a wistfulness, sometimes conscious and sometimes less so, over the fact that, in losing our religion, we found it harder to access a lot of its benefits, like effective community bonding mechanisms, access to the transcendent, wisdom that feels timeless and unblemished by corporate values, a sense of our place in the span of history, a connection to the physical earth, a sense of mystery and wonder, and so on. Though, as with so many things, it's hard to tease out what's correlation and what's causation, the religious life seems to be salutary too. People of faith, especially those who attend services, report greater levels of happiness and less loneliness than their secular peers. They give more in charity, and some research suggests they are less likely to develop substance abuse problems or die of cardiovascular disease or cancer. Among the secular, there is often a frantic attempt to capture these benefits. Remember atheist church, briefly thought to be ascendant in the 2010s? But few have been successful. We used to know how to do these things, a convert to Judaism I once met said, sighing. Though the data overwhelmingly supports the idea of secularization, there are snippets of evidence here and there that interest in, if not outright embrace of, religion remains. According to one study conducted by the Pew Center, around 50% of American adults have changed faiths at least once since the age of 18, though it's unclear how many of those were out of genuine spiritual conviction and how many were for practical purposes, like marriage. In 2021, Tablet magazine asked 79 rabbis about their experiences with conversion and found that 36, or nearly half, said they were doing more conversions than ever before. Interestingly, they all also said these were rarely for the sake of a Jewish romantic partner. In mid-2023, a handful of videos were posted on YouTube in which an array of thinkers attempted to answer the same question. Why were so many young Britons converting to Islam? There's also evidence that when younger
Sample complete. Ready to continue?